So a lot of families think making a home safer means tearing out walls and spending tens of thousands of dollars. But a lot of times, the safest and cheapest solution isn't doing more, it's actually doing less. And doing less in the right places for the right person. And the problem is, most homes don't actually fail people. They just don't match how that person really lives. So why does this all matter? Falls at home are random, that's why. They're predictable, and a lot of times they're preventable. But here's the part most people miss. The cost of a fall isn't just the ER visit. It's the loss of confidence. It's needing help sooner than you plan. It's the caregiver strain that shows up quietly day after day. And when families spend money on the wrong modifications, things that look helpful but don't match the daily routines, they don't just waste money, they miss the chance to prevent the fall in the first place. Coming up in this video, I'll show you how to spot the low-cost home modifications that actually prevent falls, how to avoid spending money on changes you don't need, and how to prioritize the exact rooms and pathways that make the biggest safety impact for your family member without overbuilding or overbuying. I've walked into a lot of homes that were recently remodeled, nice finishes, new fixtures, thoughtful families who clearly wanted to do the right thing. And yet, they were still unsafe. Not because the house was bad, but because the changes were made for the person who actually is living there. A lot of times the home was modified for a diagnosis or for a future what if, or based on a contractor's checklist, but not based on how that person really moves throughout their day. And this is the key shift I want you to make. The goal isn't to modify the house, it's to match the house to the person's real life. Because when the home matches daily routines, where they walk, when they're tired, what they reach for, that's when small, low-cost changes start making a big impact. So instead of starting with the biggest project in the house, let's start where the day actually begins. Okay, so before we talk about specific products or rooms or anything like that, we need a simple way to think about this. Okay, so here's the framework. High impact home modifications aren't about square footage, okay? They're about time and frequency. Where does this person spend the most time? Which pathway do they walk over and over every single day? Because the risk that shows up 10 times a day matters a lot more than a risk that just shows up maybe once a month. So this is where a lot of well-intentioned plans go sideways. Families start with the front door, or they go with the biggest renovation, or the thing that feels, I guess, the most obvious, yeah? But falls don't care what looks obvious. They happen where people move the most, especially when they're tired, distracted, or even rushing. So instead of asking, what could we change in this house? A better question is, what does this person actually do from morning to night? Once you answer that, the priorities usually become very clear. So this is where customization saves a lot of money. If someone only moves between one bedroom and the next, and then to the bathroom and the living room, and that's their day, those spaces deserve the most attention. So not the garage, not the back patio, not the front entry that they rarely use. On the other hand, if an older adult stays home alone all day and would need to exit the house independently in case of emergency, then yes, safe entry and exit becomes a priority. But if someone never leaves the home alone and always has a caregiver assisting them safely, then spending thousands on an exterior access, like a big ramp, might not reduce the risk at all. Same house, just very different needs. And this is exactly why blanket recommendations are so expensive and so ineffective. Let me show you what I mean. I once worked with a very small statured grandma who wanted to age in place. She had already gotten estimates from contractors, and almost all of them said the same thing. We need to widen these doorways to 36 inches so a wheelchair can fit. Now, that sounds reasonable and also responsible. But when we slowed down and actually looked at her, which was her size, her strength, and how she would really move throughout the house, the math didn't support the construction. She didn't need a standard wheelchair. She fit comfortably into a 14-inch seat width wheelchair, which as compared to a standard wheelchair is an 18-inch seat wheelchair. And when you look at the numbers, that chair is about 24 inches wide, including the push rims. So the handles you use in order to push the wheelchair. And then plus you add about 3 more inches on each side for arms and hands. right? And it still fits through a 30-inch doorway. So the doorway she already had were just fine. No walls torn out, no framing, no thousands of dollars spent on changes she didn't actually need. And this is a huge takeaway. Sometimes the most expensive recommendation disappears once you match the equipment to the person. Families are often told they need to widen doorways because a walker keeps getting stuck. But before touching the house, we look at the walker. A lot of standard walkers have the front wheels. They're mounted on the outside of the frame. But all you have to do, by simply moving those wheels to the inside of the frame, you can reduce the overall width by 4 to 6 inches. That one small adjustment can be the difference between a walker fitting through the doorway or needing major construction. No demolition, no permits, just a screwdriver. This isn't about doing less care, it's about doing smarter care. Now, to actually prevent falls, we need to talk about where to start in the home. And a lot of times, it's not where people expect. Many falls actually start in the bedroom, especially during nighttime bathroom trips. People are groggy, the lights are turned off, they're trying to move quickly. So this is one of the highest impact places to start. And many of the fixes are very low cost. Adequate lighting is non-negotiable, especially if someone gets up at night. Plug in night lights or motion sensor lights that are specifically not battery powered, they need to be plugged in. These ones, they make a huge difference. Even better is when the lighting follows the pathway from the bed to the bathroom. And of course, bed height matters. If a bed is too low, a person has to lean far forward to stand. That forward lean shifts their center of gravity and increases a fall risk. A simple fix, furniture risers under the bed. Raising the bed just a few inches can dramatically improve safety. A properly placed bed rail gives someone leverage. It's not restraint, it's assistance. That small amount of support can mean the difference between a controlled stand and a fall. Even when we do everything right, falls can still happen. And one thing that's often overlooked is what happens after a fall. Many older adults aren't injured right away, but they end up on the floor for a long time. And that's when risks like dehydration, pressure injuries show up. Here's a simple high-impact idea for an emergency fall kit. But here's the thing, it needs to be placed near the bed or the favorite chair or wherever they spend the most time throughout the day. So from the bedroom to the bathroom, you would put a chair and an emergency fall kit. Or if they spend a lot of time in the living room throughout the day watching TV, put a fall kit there as well. So this fall kit can include a phone, some sort of call device, something that is hardwired, preferably water, and just snacks so that you can get them by. And now, this isn't fear-based, it's practical planning. Now, if there's one room where small changes pay off fast, it's the bathroom. You have water, hard surfaces, tight spaces. Grab bars are one of the most researched fall prevention tools we have, but specification matters. For smaller hands, you want the small grip, the small diameter grab bar, which is 1.25 inches in diameter. Why? Because it provides a stronger grip for a smaller hand to get around a smaller in diameter as compared to 1.5 inch diameter grab bar. And also placement matters more than quantity. Focus on where the task is hardest. Standing up from the toilet and entering the shower is something that's common. And remember this, grab bars do not need to be installed into a stud. Modern drywall anchors can support 300 pounds per anchor when installed correctly. Now this matters because chasing studs often leads to an angled grab bar. And why does that matter? Well, angled grab bars force the wrist into what's called ulnar deviation, which weakens the grip. So why does this matter? Because chasing studs often leads to an angled grab bar. Now, angled grab bars force the wrist into ulnar deviation, which is something like this. And when your hand is in this position, you have a weaker grip strength instead of compared to like this, where your wrist is in neutral. A straight grab bar placed correctly keeps the wrist neutral and the grip strong. People often ask about railings in the hallways. And if someone uses a cane, yes, railings can help. But for a person who uses a walker or wheelchair users, railings actually can create new risks. And here's why. You don't want someone having to leave their walker at the beginning of a railing or leave their walker behind and then twisting to grab the rail with both hands. And then by the time they end up at the other end of the railing, they don't have their walker or they need another walker. So it's more risk, it's more equipment. So I always tell our clients is that once you use a walker, it is your best friend. It goes with you everywhere. So like I mentioned before, lighting is one of the cheapest, most powerful safety upgrades there is. Now, I want you to think about it like this. Think up, down, and all around. So that means overhead lighting, task lighting, and pathway lighting on the bottom. And some of the best fixes cost nothing at all. Just walk the pathway your family member takes every day. Look for those loose rugs, cords, clutter, tight pathways. And finally, pay attention to those little thresholds and floor transitions. Even small height changes can stop a walker and catch a toe. It's not the height, it's the interruption. I want to leave you with one more real example. I had a client with a small half bathroom where the door swung into the bathroom space. Now, if you think about it, that's typical. You want to maintain space outside the bathroom so you would have the bathroom door swing in. So one day the family member actually fell inside the bathroom. When the family tried to come to the rescue and get in quickly, they couldn't open the door because his legs were blocking the door from opening. So the simple fix was we changed the door to an outswing. Not everywhere, not blindly, but in the specific space for that specific risk. And that's the point. High impact home modifications aren't about doing everything. They're about making thoughtful changes in the exact moments where things can go wrong. And this same thinking applies outside the house too. One of the most common questions families ask me is about ramps, especially when there are just a few steps at the entry. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong, either building something too steep to be safe or way longer than they actually need. So in this next video, I'll walk you through exactly how to choose the right ramp length for 3 steps, how to measure it correctly, and how to know when a ramp is or isn't the right solution for your home. You can click right here to watch that.